To Alpha and Omega Ministries. We are delighted that you have joined us. And we have entered the month of Sivan now, and it's the month of the undivided heart, and how important it is to serve our God with an undivided heart. We have to watch that, don't we? So again, this week, there is so much going on prophetically that we're going to look at our Torah portion, and basically the second half of the teaching is going to be about what's happening in the headlines that fulfills prophecy. So it's important to be aware of what's going on, not to worry about it, to be aware of it, and to thank God that He's working. So today our Torah portion is BaMidbar, and it means in the wilderness. And while it may be necessary to pass through a wilderness of experiences, we don't have to live there. Right? Even if we're in a wilderness, we can rise above the wilderness, but that depends on our attitudes and our dependence on the Lord Himself. And we get to see Him do miracles, which, by the way, we are going to hear of an amazing, really, I think it's maybe one of the biggest miracles I've ever heard of. We have an amazing guest here with us by the name of Roni Arbiv, and she is going to tell us what happened with her brother, one of her brothers by the name of Roy, as he led a squadron into Gaza. Was it the first mission into Gaza? The very first mission into Gaza after...
In Be'eri.
In Be'eri, okay. And so it was right after the October 7th attack. They were the first to go in. And you won't believe this. And so for those of you who aren't here with us today, who aren't going to hear it in person, we are going to record it and put it on YouTube. So pass the word around. You don't want to miss this testimony. Really, it's amazing enough to be a movie without question. So, all right. So I'm going to skip a couple pages here because the headlines just kept pouring in all week until you kind of want to go, wow, this is more than we can handle. So we're going to see that the book of Numbers begins in Numbers 1:2, and it says, take a head count of the entire assembly of the children of Israel, according to their families, according to the household of their fathers, by the number of the names of every male, according to their head count. So really, this was a head count to find out how many fighting men were available in Israel. Now, did God already know? Of course, He already knew, but He is doing something very special in this count. So the most dehumanizing thing that someone can do to someone else is to rob them of their name, which the Nazis did in the concentration camps of the people that were in those. And they marked a number, they tattooed a number on their arm, and they became nameless numbers. That is dehumanizing. And it's all about power, having power over people, which just takes away all humanity. But there is a famous statement in the Mishnah that says, a single life is like a universe. That's how important every life is to God. The whole universe is wrapped up in every life. So Hebrew has a lot of terms for to count, but when God says to take a count in this verse, He says, say u et rosh. Right here I wrote it, say u et rosh, which means lift the head. So when God is making this count, He's lifting the head of each one being counted. He's taking in this biblical census, not a number, but He's affirming the worth of each individual. A very different way to look at counting. He's lifting their heads. And why those fighting men? Because those fighting men, when they go in to take Israel or to take the lands that he's telling them to take, they go in and they're actually redeeming the land because they're bringing God into the land where it's been all pagan. That's what the soldiers in Gaza are doing right now. They're redeeming that land that had been given over to pagan Palestinians who had not loved the land. They hadn't honored the God of the land. They did nothing that they were supposed to do. So these Israeli soldiers, the IDF, they're going in and redeeming that land. And that's why we pray for them. It's an amazing thing that they're doing. So the Lord wants this kind of a relationship with us because he's redeeming us, right, on a daily basis. He walks with us, talks with us, shows us where to go, teaches us his word. Galatians 2:20 shows us how intimate this relationship is. It says, I have been crucified with Messiah, but it's no longer I who live, but Messiah who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. So we see the use of I and me in that verse, those singular pronouns that point to me, right? He died for each one individually, even though he died for the whole world, because the life of the universe is in every single soul. So Jeremiah 31:3 goes on to say, the Lord appeared to him from far away. I have loved you. This is the singular, you individually, with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have continued my faithfulness to you. It's his love that causes him to be faithful to us. So we acknowledge and rejoice in his love for us. And we also need to look at the other way around. Are we faithful to him? Right? Because love is a two-way street, isn't it? It's a participation of two people. And so John 14:15 says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. That's how you love God. Today, we may not carve some image from a tree as the pagans do, but we may build things that take our time and money, or we may buy things that we idolize, right? We have to recognize the modern day idols. So God says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Those commandments keep us on track. Colossians 3:14 says, and above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Imagine if the world loved its neighbors, just loved its neighbors. It would change everything in one day. Just love. So here is Israel in the wilderness, and Jeremiah says in 2 verses 1 and 2, moreover, the word of the Lord came to me saying, go and cry in the hearing of Jerusalem, saying, thus says the Lord, I remember you, the kindness of your youth. He's talking to Israel now. The love of your betrothal, because when the Lord came down on Mount Sinai and gave them the law, it was as though he was marrying them, right? And when you went after me in the wilderness, in a land not sown. So God's remembering Israel's love for him, though it's, it goes through cycles like we all do, but he's remembering that love and he's cherishing it. And so we have to take inventory. Are we obeying the Lord? Are we obeying his commandments? Because that's how we show him that we love him. And so Israel went through this wilderness, through this place of scorpions and snakes and nothingness. And at Sinai, they said, we will do and hear. And that's PowerPoint 1. So they took the staircase up of the we will do, the we will hear part. They said, we're going to learn as we go, right? So you're on a parallel track. You're doing what the Lord said to the best of your ability, and he's teaching you as you go how to do it better. It's an amazing thing. And so Rambam says the people understood that they were on a spiritual as well as physical journey, and they might not know all the details of the law at once. So there are certain things we only understand by doing, right? You can watch somebody ice skate, but you can't learn to do it if you don't put ice skates on and go do it, right? You can only understand leadership if you become a leader. You can only understand authoring a book if you write a book. Then you know how difficult the process is. You can read books about things, but it's not the same as doing the things. So we're on a journey of unfolding revelation. We learn as we walk with the Lord. They were actually learning not to be influenced by their environment. And this is what we got to take away with us and remember. Our environment doesn't shape who we are. We are to shape the environment. That means we take the Word of God, we go into that environment with His Word, with His Spirit, and we influence that environment. Yes. It may be a wilderness, it may be full of scorpions, but we don't let the scorpions tell us how to behave, right? That's the difference. And so it's huge. We are to transform every spiritual desert into a civilized environment. That's a big deal, right? And so as they go in and take the land, they're bringing order to chaos. That's what we do. Hamas did nothing but create chaos and evil, violence. And now they're back in bringing order, and the love of God will come back into that land. Numbers 2:1-2. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, every one of the children of Israel shall camp by his own standard beside the emblems of his father's house. They shall camp some distance from the tabernacle of meeting. Now I want to notice real quickly this word encamp. In this verse, it is in the plural form, which is Yehanu, okay? So now in the book of Numbers, they're encamping. God said, I want you to encamp this way. And he's giving them an order in how to camp. But it's the plural form, all right? Now I want us to contrast that with Exodus 19:2, which says, for they had departed from Rephidim, had come to the wilderness of Sinai, and camped in the wilderness. So Israel camped there before the mountain, okay. And now the word is Yahan, which is singular. Why was it plural in Numbers and singular in Exodus before you get to Numbers? This is a very important question. So there was a rabbi by the name of Twersky who lived in Chernobyl. And at that point in time, Chernobyl was in Ukraine. He lived in the mid-1800s, and he was a medical doctor as well as a rabbi, and he was a psychiatrist. And you know how he helped his psychiatric patients? Oh, I love this. He helped his psychiatric patients by teaching them to integrate Torah into their daily lives. Now, if we took Torah to all the homeless on our streets today, I bet you we'd see a huge turnaround in the number of homeless. If we taught them how to integrate Torah into their lives, we would see miracles happen. So he commented on these two Hebrew words for camping, saying, using the singular word for camping in Exodus, indicated that all the Israelites were united. They weren't divided in any way at this point. They were united as one person. And it is this unity that made them worthy of receiving Torah. That's huge. We need unity today. We've had a lot of discussions at our house in the past 24 hours about the divisions that are in Israel and that are in America, that are in the church, that are everywhere, that are in our families. It's everywhere. And division just doesn't work. So why all the problems among people? The sages teach, you have no person without his hour, and no thing without its place. That's a big thing to get in your head. If every person has a specific time and a specific purpose, why is there so much dissension among people? Why? Why are we fighting? And he answered, because many people are envious of others and wish to occupy others' time and place. If we were free of envy, we might achieve the coveted unity. Think about it. Between Exodus and the book of Numbers, only a year's time had gone by. The unity was already weakening. Already. This Torah portion teaches us that we each have a purpose and a place, and we have no need of jealousy and rivalry. The Lord will use every single person for what he has created us for. So James 3:16 says, for where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. Wow. Proverbs 27:4 says, wrath is cruel, anger is overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? In Exodus, they camped in unity as one soul. They were in akdut, right? Plural unity. But already, only at the beginning of the second year, the unity is coming undone. They are no longer unified, which is that plural word for camp, as that shows us. So Numbers 2:1 and 2. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, every one of the children of Israel shall camp by his own standard beside the emblems of his father's house. Now, what's he doing? Is he dividing them? No, he's showing them that they all have a specific purpose. And if they all do their purpose, all of Israel will work as one, and they'll be whole, right? They'll need nothing because they'll all have a purpose to fulfill that'll bring them wholeness. So, isn't this a picture of the body, as Rabbi Shaul explains in 1 Corinthians 12:14 through 20, when he says, for the body does not consist of one part, but of many. If the foot should say, hey, because I'm not a hand, I don't belong to the body, that would not make any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has arranged the members of the body, every one of them, according to his design. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. That's what we have to get in our heads, emotionally. And all these ways that jealousy creeps in, don't let it, right? So I want to show you something amazing about unity. Let me see. I got to move this a tiny bit so I can see it a little bit better. Okay, so if you take the numerical value of the letters of the word echad, which means unity, right? you have 1 plus 8 plus 4 for these letters, Aleph, Het, and Dalet, and that's unity. And if you add the word Ahava, which is love, and take the numerical value of those letters, and you add the 4, 8, 1, 5, 2, 5, 1, you get 26. Well, do you know why 26 is special? Yeah. It's the numerical value of the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Whoa. That's amazing, because the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey is the echadness of the Lord. You cannot separate them. So unity and love is exactly what the Lord wants and what he requires. And so there's the power in unity. At the Tower of Babel, the Lord spoke of the power of unity when he said in Genesis 11:6, and the Lord said, indeed, the people are one and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. That's what unity does, right? Nothing that you do when you're unified will be withheld. Think about those words. Unity is power, and it can be used for good or it can be used for evil. So Romans 16:17 says, now I urge you, brethren, keep your eye on those who cause dissensions and hindrances contrary to the teaching which you learned, and turn away from them. If people bring in false teaching, this verse tells you what to do. Titus 3:10, reject a factious man after a first and second warning. One of the signs that we're in the last days is division. And it's everywhere. Luke 12:52, for from now on, 5 members in one household will be divided against 3. 2 against 2, against 3. They will be divided, father against son, son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. That covers it all, doesn't it? It's a horrible thing when there's dissension in a family. Mark 3:24, if a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. It's so simple. And we will see why this is critical in Israel right now, because Israel, I'm not ready for that quite yet. Not quite. But we're going to see that in a minute, because Israel is a family, right? They need to be echad, like America should be a family. We're divided in how many ways now? So in Greek, the word for agreement is haze, and it means, right here, agreement, and there is no dissension in this agreement. It's a very powerful word. And so now we're going to begin to know that history continued. So what's the main thing we get out of our Torah portion? Every single person, God lifts up the head. What do you do in the Aaronic blessing? He lifts you, right? And he lifts your head. And he has a special purpose for every single person. And so that's what this Torah portion is. Don't let disunity disrupt your peace. You go into an environment and you take peace into that environment, and wholeness and love. So as history is unfolded, prophecy is being fulfilled. So we know that God has 2 major names. All right. He's Elohim, the God of judgment, and he is Yud He Vav He, the God of grace and mercy. All right. So in the last days, he's going to function in both of these offices, right? And he's going to let it be known that he is the judge, that he is watching, and that he is judging. All right. So I'm going to give a disclaimer before I begin to present these headlines. because they could be divisive, and it's not why we're here today. It's not about division. It's about unity. It's about knowing as a whole what is happening. It's not to scare you. It's not to bring discouragement or anything like that. It's just about looking at what's going on, because the prophets foretold these days so amazingly perfectly. And Yeshua himself said, why don't you know the signs of your time? We're responsible to know. So these words I'm going to say are not about politics, though God is working through politics, but they're to show what the Lord is doing on the earth, even as we speak. And he's hastening his return. So we talked about division, and now we see it on the earth today, right? Is there division in Israel? Yes, there is. Many reports come out of Israel today telling us that the people of Israel are divided. So one such report is PowerPoint 2. This one, obviously, it's about Israel calling for judicial reform. And I want you to notice that kind of yellow strip that goes back. In front of it, that's a picture of Bibi Netanyahu. And it says, can I read it? It says crime minister. So the people demonstrating in this photo don't think Netanyahu is doing the right job. It'd be like the left in America putting a banner out with some hateful phrase about Trump, right? So it's the same in Israel. We're like a mirror of each other in the ways that we're divided. And here's what the article said. This is actually from an Israeli newspaper, and Rabbi Shapira put it in his book, The Fall of Edom, and he translated it into English. So it says, in 2 letters sent to the Israeli Prime Minister in March and July, the head of Amman warned Netanyahu of the perfect storm. This perfect storm is brewing from the internet, is brewing from the internal conflict, fueling the Palestinian uprising. The head of Amman Research Division personally warned the prime minister that the political social division in Israel was providing ammunition to Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas. And so we saw what came. Now, there's more than one opinion about why that attack took place. That's one opinion. So we see the people of Israel in the streets that are opposed to the present government and the judicial system. Look what our judicial system is doing in this country. So many things that Trump wants to do are being blocked by the courts. And so the exact same thing is going on here. Anyway, the Lord is going to judge between who is right. He's not just sitting up there letting this all unfold without watching everything about it. You know what he's watching for and what he's going to judge on? Who's going to side with Israel and with his word and do what's right? Those are going to be the sheep and the sheep nations. And who's going to side against Israel and against him and against his word? Those are going to be the goats. So it's so important to know what side to be on. So I added these verses, so I put them in a PowerPoint so you could read them as we go through. But Ezekiel 18:30 says, therefore I will judge you, each one, according to your own ways, declares the sovereign Lord. Repent, turn away from all your offenses. Now, offenses, I want to just stop there for a minute. Do you know what an offense is? An offense is when either you get offended at what somebody says or does about you, or you get offended at what somebody else did. It's none of your business to take on an offense about what somebody else does, right? We have enough trouble just keeping our own hearts clean and our own heads straight, right? We don't need to take up other people's offenses. So be careful about that. It says, turn away from all your offenses, then sin will not be your downfall. Wow. So at the end, each individual, Ezekiel tells us, is going to be judged. And it's so important about how we treat Israel and God's people. Joel 3:20 and 21. But people will live in Judah and Jerusalem forever. I will punish the ones who killed them, whom I have not yet punished, for the Lord lives in Zion. That's pretty clear, isn't it? All right. So we can't take the patience of the Lord to mean that he isn't going to bring judgment. He is going to bring judgment. And those who fight against Israel, the Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, they're the ones that are falling right now. Hezbollah's been pretty much quieted. The Houthis are on their way to being destroyed. Syria's regime has fallen. Hezbollah, they're very quiet nowadays. And the Lord's doing this in their midst because they're redeeming the land by going in and taking it back. God is fighting with those troops. Jeremiah 30, verse 7, alas, that day is so great, there is none like it. It is a time of distress for Jacob, yet he shall be saved out of it. That's a promise. It's going to happen. And a horrific war started on October 7th in Israel, which is also the beginning of the final battle of Gog and Magog. So are we going to have a breath to take before the final? Yeah, I think we are, because God's going to, redeem that land through the IDF, and then he's going to do the next step in this whole situation. So we read Psalm 82, verses 1 through 4 and 8, and notice this psalm, the title of it is a plea for what? Justice. Isn't that amazing? And it's a camera angle of what's happening now and what's going to continue. So it says, God stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly, he says to the people, and show partiality to the wicked? Right? We know people that do that. Every day we see it in the news. Defend the poor and the fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Free them from the hand of the wicked. Arise, O God. Judge the earth. So this psalmist is crying out for God to wake up and rise up and judge, because his judgment will be pure. For you shall inherit all nations. So in Israel, just prior to the October 7th war, the judicial system was being shaken. The people weren't happy with it. There was a clash with those who opposed God and those who wanted his law, to be strong. That was the clash. It almost always comes down to that. And this all relates to the separation of the sheep and the goats. Whose side are we going to be on? Matthew 25:32 says, all the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. So the separation process has begun. He's watching now. He's watching. He's judging who is with him and who is against him, and who is behind this eternal separation. Who wants this internal division and separation? It's Satan himself. That's who causes division. And it's easy for him to attack when people are divided. Right? This gives Satan an open door to attack Israel's heel. Remember the war that began in Genesis? It says, you will attack the heel. This gives Satan that opening when there's division. So Then Psalm 83 gives us more about what will happen at this time. And it says in verses 1 through 6a, don't keep silent, O God. Do not hold your peace, and do not be still, O God. For behold, your enemies make a tumult, and those who hate you have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against your people and consulted together against your sheltered ones. That's Israel. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. What's the big cry we heard in all the news reports? Oh, we're going to take over Israel from the border to the sea, right? We're going to cut them off from being a nation. Exactly the words that are in this psalm. They will not. For they have consulted together with one consent. They form a confederacy. Now remember that word. That word confederacy can be a league or an alliance, okay? Because I'm going to show you a headline in a minute and show you that this is being fulfilled. So they form a confederacy against you, the tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab, the Hagrites, Gebal, Ammon, and Amalek, Philistia, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria has also joined them. So those are the ancient biblical names of the very nations that are attacking Israel. They're the Arab nations. They're Lebanon. They're a couple of places in northern Africa, but we'll show you on the map in a minute. And we see this confederacy is the Arab nations who are involved in being against God's people. They come in like sheep under the Abrahamic Accord, but what's their real purpose? We're going to look at that. And so PowerPoint 4, the Confederacy is the Arab League, meeting with Putin on the 15th of October coming up this year. Now listen to this. Putin to host the first Russian Arab summit ever held in the world's history, all right? In October, Russian agencies report Russian President Vladimir Putin has invited all leaders and the Secretary General of the Arab League, that's a confederacy, all right, for the first Russian Arab summit on October 15th. Russia's news agencies reported on Saturday, citing a statement from the Kremlin. This is Putin. I am confident that this meeting will contribute to the further strengthening of mutually beneficial, multifaceted cooperation between our countries and will help in finding ways, listen to these words, to ensure peace and security and stability in the Middle East and North Africa. Oh my goodness, there are those words that Yeshua told us when they say peace and safety, peace and security. You can't make this stuff up. This is from a Russian newspaper. So noteworthy, okay, everybody pay attention now. You can't miss this. Noteworthy is the fact that October 15th this year is Simchat Torah. It's Simchat Torah. Israel was attacked on October 7th in 2023. That was Simchat Torah. What does that mean? Someone said. Well, we don't know, but we need to be praying. We need to be praying because these things are not coincidental. All right, so Putin also is from the far north. Now, so is Turkey above Israel in the far north, but Russia is even further north. And who knows, God may have been lumping that whole area together, but we'll see in a minute that the maps will show us. But you know who comes from the far north? Saphon is the Hebrew word. Satan always comes from the far north. Count on it. So Ezekiel 38, 1 through 4. Is this PowerPoint 5? Yes, because I failed to put it on your notes, so here it is for you in a PowerPoint. Ezekiel 38, 1 through 4. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I'm against you, O Gog. That's the prince of the north. Okay, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. I will turn you around and put hooks into your jaws and lead you out with all your army horses and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. This is Persia. Okay, this is Iran, Ethiopia, Libya. Those are countries in northern Africa. With them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer, all its troops, the house of Togarmah from the far north. So let's look at these maps on the next. Okay, so I don't know how free I am here, but that area on the far right of the screen, Elam, is Persia. This is Iran today. Okay, so that you need to see. And the next map is, okay, so here you can see Turkey is exactly north of Israel, and above Turkey, of course, is Russia. So we see all the names that are mentioned in those verses in Ezekiel 38, and these are the biblical names of the cities and areas that the Lord was referring to. They're all right there. And Turkey is a player now, a big player. So we need to be watching that. And all of this is happening when President Trump is trying to get the Russian-Ukrainian war ended. And on May 26th, he said this, PowerPoint 8. Okay. Trump on Putin. He's gone absolutely crazy. And he said, I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, being Putin. But he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, Trump said, noting he was very surprised. Russia has increased its attacks on Ukraine, despite Trump's calls for a ceasefire. We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kyiv and other cities. I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people, and something happened to this guy, and I don't like it. That was Trump's statement. Russia is far north of Israel. Watch that area. And another camera angle of this same war comes out of Joel 3, 1 through 3 and 9 through 17, which says, For behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem. That started in Numbers during the late 1800s, and definitely since 1948, Israel has been repopulated with the Jewish people, right, as they've come home. And he says, I'm going to gather all nations and bring them down to the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. Now listen to these words. They have also divided up my land. So my question is this possible that they're going to try to divide the land of Israel? That they've done before, always with the worst kind of consequences, right? Well, Joel, this prophet, is clearly telling us what's happening. So I want you to see the following headlines. PowerPoint 9. Preparations intensify for UN two-state solution conference led by Saudi Arabia and France. Okay, the red print says, The foreign ministers of France, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Jordan at the French Foreign Ministry on Friday, ahead of the meeting dedicated to preparing for the New York conference on the two-state solution. It's not going to go well for the United States that we're holding this. We should not do it. Okay, preparations, the article went on to say, preparations are intensifying for a major international conference aimed at advancing the two-state solution to Israel-Palestinian conflict, set to take place at the United Nations headquarters in New York from June 17th to 20th. That is bad news on all fronts. PowerPoint 10. This is another headline that is telling us what's happening. It says the UN holds prep meeting for June two-state solution conference. And it says the conference, which is set to take place June 17 through 20 in New York, is sponsored by France and Saudi Arabia. Organizers have said the goal is to produce an action-oriented outcome document detailing irreversible steps and concrete measures toward implementing a two-state solution. Well, I have news for them. They have not read the Hebrew scriptures, and they need to, because God will not be happy, and he is going to fight them. Now I have a 38-second. Can you ditch the lights? All right, this is only 38 seconds, but it's powerful.
Just yesterday, the Prime Minister of